And that is the moment. That is exactly when the phone comes out, when DoorDash wins. And it's not because you don't care about feeding your family. It's because you hit a wall. Decision fatigue hits you, and there is nothing in your kitchen that is set up to catch you. Today, I am going to teach you the very single thing that has changed that moment for me and for my family. I call it the anchor protein method. And it's not meal planning per se. It's actually not even a recipe. It is a system. And it is the way that our great grandparents fed people. I want to welcome you to the Sovereign Kitchen Society. I'm Molly Bravo, and this is the show where we get our hands dirty. I'm talking literally and figuratively. We are learning the old world skills that actually matter for modern lives. So we're here for the timeless stuff. I'm talking about the stuff that keeps our families fed, keeps our minds clear, and of course, we want to keep our wallet intact. Today, we are going to dig into something that I think is probably one of the most overlooked skills in the kitchen. And it's not a recipe. It's not a hack. It is an entire way of thinking about how food moves through your house. Because here is the bottom line. Most of us were never actually taught how to cook strategically. We were taught recipes, we were taught individual recipes, which is great until it's like Tuesday at 4 p.m. and you have nothing that connects to anything. So let's fix that. We're going to fix it right now, today. And I want to talk about the modern kitchen system, because the modern kitchen system is literally designed to fail you. And I don't say that to be dramatic. I say it because I have lived it, I have breathed it, and I am speaking from experience. So when I first started cooking for my family, and I was really trying to do it right. I was trying to make nutritious meals every day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, if I can. I would sit down on a Sunday and I would try to plan out every single meal for the week. And I do this for a living. So I was thinking of breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. We're talking 21 meals. And I would find these recipes on Pinterest or on the Food Network. And I would make this super beautiful grocery list, and I would go to the store and I would spend probably like $250. And by Wednesday, half of what I purchased was wilting in the fridge, and I just didn't have the energy to follow through with that fancy Thai basil chicken that sounded so good on Sunday morning. You know what I mean? And then the guilt, of course, would hit me because now here I am. I've spent all of my money and I'm ordering pizza. So I'm paying twice. And that is the leak, my friend. That is the invisible bleed that I think most families don't even realize is happening to them. So I stopped trying to plan for those 21 meals. I stopped thinking in terms of Monday's taco night and Tuesday's pasta night. And I started to ask a completely different question. Instead of what am I going to be cooking this week, I started asking what proteins am I going to anchor in around for this particular week? And that is the one shift, that one tiny reframe that has changed everything for me. And I am pretty certain that if you try this out, it's going to work for you too. So here's how this actually works. I want you to think about this just for a minute, because just going back 2 or 3 generations, I want you to think about what kitchens used to look like. Nobody was scrolling Pinterest. Nobody had these fancy new recipes every night. What were they doing? They were eating the same thing all the time. They were buying a whole chicken or like this huge pork roast or a couple of pounds of ground beef. And then that protein would become 4, 5, sometimes 6 different meals throughout the week. The chicken wasn't just going to be one dinner. And I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. They would start with like a roasted chicken on a Sunday. And then that roasted chicken would turn into a chicken salad on a Monday. And then chicken soup on Tuesday. And then the bones would become the broth by Wednesday. And then that broth would be used to cook the beans or to cook the rice. So you can see that there was nothing that was wasted. Every single thing was connected. And so that is what the anchor protein method is. It's not a recipe. It is a framework. And here is the rule, if you want to call it a rule, okay? So you're going to pick 2, maybe 3 proteins for the week. That's it. That's all you need. You're going to cook them in large batches, and you're going to just do it super simply. So you're going to do like salt and pepper and maybe a little garlic, some herbs if you want to. You don't need to over-season anything. And then every meal you're going to make that week is going to be built off of one of those anchors. And if you want to really simplify, just choose one anchor. So let me walk you through what this actually looks like. I'm going to give you an example from like what it looks like in my kitchen right now. As you know, I always do roasted chicken. We get our chickens from Caleb at Fogline Farm. We pick them up on a Wednesday, and I have chicken for the week. So I take this roasted chicken. It's usually about 5 pounds. It takes me like 10 minutes of actual hands-on time, and then the oven does the rest. And then I brown off a couple of pounds, like usually about 3 pounds of ground beef. We get our ground beef from Marquis Guard up in San Gregorio in California, which I absolutely love. It's all regenerative and just the animals are raised with such care. I saute that beef, usually with a little bit of onions and garlic, salt and pepper, nothing fancy. And then that is my big cooking for the week. So I just do 2 proteins. It's maybe an hour total of time. And then from that roasted chicken, here's what I do. Sunday night, we usually eat the chicken with like roasted potatoes and carrots, and we do like this beautiful roasted chicken supper, and we have like a nice green salad. And then Monday, I usually shred up the leftover chicken breast. And I make either like chicken quesadillas or enchiladas. Takes me like 10 minutes, okay? Because I already have beans soaking. I've always got a pot of rice going. And then Tuesday, I pull the rest of the meat off of the bones and I mix it with a little bit of mayonnaise and celery, a little bit of mustard, and I make a chicken salad wrap. And I usually do this for lunches. Sometimes I add in some grapes or some walnuts. It's really tasty. And then by Tuesday night, I have a gallon of bone broth that I have been cooking and simmering in my crock pot. It requires no additional effort on my part. And that is like 4 meals right there from one roasted chicken. And the bone broth, I love to call that like my liquid gold, because It is so much better than anything you can get at the store. I usually add in just a little bit of apple cider vinegar, a little bit of Malden sea salt, and by the time that bone broth is done, it is gelatinous and it jiggles on my spoon, and I just know that it is so full of collagen and deliciousness that I feel really good about sipping on it or serving it to my family, and it beats the store-bought box stuff like hands down. You know, our great grandmothers did not throw one thing away. I mean, they were like saving bacon grease inside of a little can underneath the kitchen sink, like nothing was wasted. They really understood that there was the philosophy and the mantra of waste not, want not. And I feel like as Americans in modern day society, we really need to get back to that mentality. I shouldn't say we. I enjoy getting back to that philosophy. And that is the philosophy that I'm trying to teach my family to live by. So, okay, so next up, the ground beef. So Sunday, I usually take that ground beef and I portion some of it out for like taco bowls. And then Monday, it becomes the base of like a really quick skillet that I make with some peppers and rice. And then Tuesday, I make it into a huge pot of chili that we can eat for like multiple days. Maybe I make a little bit of cornbread. And then it's like I'm cooking it once and I have 3 or 4 different meals. So I'm not stressing about what's for dinner when we're coming home from soccer practice and everybody's hungry. There is always something in the fridge. That is what I want for you. I want you to have the most nutrient-dense, delicious ingredients ready to go in your fridge. So when you guys are hungry, people have low blood sugar, you just rush in and heat something up on the fly. It does not need to be overly complicated. You do not need to be spending exorbitant amounts of money at the grocery store. Now, I want to explain why this philosophy of the anchor protein works, because understanding the why is what is going to help make it stick for you. You know that I'm a chef and I do this for a living. And believe me, I have taken the hardest way possible for the majority of my life. So I'm telling you from experience why this is easier. Traditional meal planning fails for one reason only. And that is because it asks you to make way too many decisions. You are supposed to decide what to eat 21 times in a week before the week even starts. And I know you know what I'm talking about. And then you're supposed to like execute all of these perfectly made meals for like 7 days. And here you are, you're trying to change the way that you're eating. You're trying to cook. You're trying to eat the right way, shop the right way. That is not sustainable. Okay. So that is just setting you up for failure. I'm just letting you know right now. But there's actual real research that is done on this. And that is what I really find so fascinating, because it's like, man, we could make things so much easier on ourselves. So the average American adult makes over 200 decisions about food every single day. Nope, not 20, not 50, over 200. That is insane. We are thinking, what should we eat? When should we eat? How much should we eat? Where are we going to eat? What are we going to cook? What are we going to buy? And all of these decisions cost you a little bit of mental energy. And I know that you can relate to that because by the late afternoon, all of our brains are fried. And I don't mean that, there's no pun intended with that. So like you're running on fumes and you're reaching for the phone and you're thinking about what you're going to order for delivery because that is the only bandwidth that you have. So clearly it's not a willpower problem, right? It's like a systems problem. If you do something different, things will change. So the anchor protein method, it works because it collapses these 200 decisions into about 5. What are my proteins for the week? When am I going to cook them? What's in the fridge? And what can I build around these proteins? That's it. That is the decision that you have to make. So you're literally just assembling. You're not actually thinking and cooking and working harder than you need to. And then I also want to talk about the money piece because I feel like that's pretty important. When you're shopping for 2 or 3 proteins and then you're buying your vegetables and your sides to support those, your grocery list is going to become shorter. Like really, really short. You're going to stop buying all of the random ingredients for like 7 recipes, like the coconut milk for one dish and the sauce for another, and then the herbs that you use just 2 sprigs for, and the rest just kind of rot in the drawer. You are going to buy what you're actually going to use. And that alone, my friend, I am telling you right now, that alone is going to cut your weekly grocery bill by like $40 to $75. That is huge. And I am not making that number up. That is what I see in my own receipts. And what I hear from the women in our community is that you are going to save big time. So I want to tell you where this really clicked for me because it wasn't from a cookbook. Years and years ago, before all of this, like before Wilder Space, before I got sober, before any of it, I was in a season of my life where I was spending money that I did not have on food that was polluting my body. I was ordering takeout 4 and 5 nights a week. I was exhausted. I was overwhelmed. I was disconnected from my health and from my kitchen, and I did not know any other way of doing things. So I was living in damage control mode. And every time I would try to do something different, I would fail. And I was failing because I did not know any other way. And I started to spend time with women who were doing things differently. So some of these women had gardens, and some of them had really beautiful, full pantries. And it seemed like they could feed their entire family without even breaking a sweat. And I watched them, I paid attention, and what I noticed was that they were not eating these super fancy meals. They weren't doing anything overtly complicated, but they always had a protein that was ready to go. And the work that they were doing was always front loaded, meaning that the rest of the week was just kind of like assembling things on the fly. So it wasn't challenging at all. And that is when it really hit me. And this is why I'm like so passionate about sharing with people the way that our elders used to do things and gleaning as much wisdom as I can from them so that I can pass it on to the next generation. Because the way that I saw these women living is exactly what my grandmother used to do. And it's what all of our grandmothers used to do. It wasn't about the meal planning. It was about meal anchoring. And somewhere between our grandparents and then where we're at now, we have become very disconnected from the food that we eat, the meals that we share with our families, and we have traded in family dinners for like recipe apps and Grubhub and eating on the fly and not taking care of our bodies and taking the time to settle down and have a really good meal with the people that we love. So this isn't anything new. It's not anything that I have invented. I'm just giving it a name. I'm giving a name to something that our elders have already known. And I think that part of what we're trying to do here, like part of this whole movement, the real food movement, is about remembering. So it is about gathering the wisdom of our elders before it's gone and making sure that we are able to pass it on to the next generation in a way that they're actually going to use it and apply it. I think that is so important. So here's what I want you to do. And I really, really want you to do this, okay? Just try it for 1 week. I want you to pick 2 proteins. I want you to go to the store or go to a local farm, get those proteins, pull it from your freezer, whatever you have to do. I suggest getting a whole chicken because you can get so much more out of it than just like boneless, skinless chicken breast. And then, of course, get some ground beef or ground meat, whatever kind you want. Keep it really simple. Cook them both, cook them on the same day. Sunday is like usually what works best for me, but you do whatever works best for you. You're going to roast them. You're going to brown them just like we talked about earlier. And then you are going to use those as your anchors to assemble meals for the rest of the week. If you want to take it a step further, which I totally think you should, I recommend going to the store and instead of getting canned beans, I would love for you to get some dried beans from the bulk section. I would love for you to take those dried beans and just soak them in water. That's all you have to do. Put them in your fridge, forget about them. So that when you're ready and you're hungry and you're tired sometime during the week, all you have to do is pull them out, cook them. You already have your protein, and now you have a really nice bean to accompany it. Super easy. It's like you can have everything ready, 5 minutes, no effort on your part. It's like very basic assembly. I want you to save your bones. Please, sweet baby Jesus, please save those bones, okay? Do not throw them in the garbage. Every single bone is going to go into a freezer bag or it's going to go straight into the crock pot. This is like a non-negotiable because those bones are like future meals. Think of it as future medicine, okay? Because once you have enough, you can make all of your broth. And then that broth becomes soup or a stew or the liquid for your rice or your beans or the base of a gravy. Like, dude, you have so much potential with one container of stock or broth that you make from scratch. And it does not cost you anything. So it's like the most valuable thing that you can have in your kitchen. One of the most important things that I learned as a chef when I was in school is that all of the stuff that gets thrown into the garbage can, those are dollars. Like you are lighting dollar bills on fire when you're wasting food like that. So have the same mentality as a chef, just think about like, okay, nothing goes to waste. What can we do to utilize this? This, my friend, is what sovereignty looks like. So welcome, welcome. I am so happy that you're here. I'm so happy that you are listening because a roasted chicken on a Sunday and a plan for what you're going to do with those leftovers is sovereignty. It is freedom. You don't have to worry. You don't have to think. You have everything handled. It's knowing that you can feed your family for a week without even panicking, without ordering out, without overspending, or like in my case, spending money I don't even have, you know? So just think about it in that regard. It's kind of exciting and it's kind of fun. And my hope is that you try this. And obviously, I hope that something clicks for you, because if you've made it through 1 week without that 4 p.m. panic, then I am pretty certain that maybe it will stick. I want you to come hang out with me. Come visit me over at Wilder Space. Tag me on Instagram. Tell me what you're anchoring in this week. Tell me what you've made from the leftovers, because this is how we build. This is how we build new skills. This is how we build new foundations. It all starts in the kitchen, and it's so easy and so fun. I am Molly Bravo. This is Wilder Space. Thank you so much. Remember that food is and always will be our medium for connection, and I will see you on the flip side.